Baby, this is the year that we stop getting in our own damn way. So recently I was in a group chat, and these are some of my ride or die friends, and I love having this group chat, and we talk all about spiritual growth and where we're at and all the sticky stuff that we're experiencing on our journeys. And one thing that kept coming up in this conversation was this idea of, am I saying something new? And this problem of being a creator in this world, whether it's building a business or creating your art or being a teacher and sharing your wisdom and your teachings with the world, but feeling like your ideas or your message or your creation is not groundbreaking. So is it worth sharing with the world? Welcome back to monsoon season. I am your host, Aisha. This is the coziest place on the internet. Here we talk all about culture, consciousness, and the courage it takes to be seen. And we know the most spiritual thing that we can do is be vulnerable. Today's topic is piping hot, and something that is at the forefront of my mind as a challenge and something that I struggle with, and a lot of clients that I've worked with have struggled with. And it's this idea and this fear that our message or our creation, what we're trying to put out into the world, isn't original enough, it's not elevated enough, or it's not special enough. And we are going to be unpacking that today. This whole conversation really started in a group chat with my two girlfriends who are also creating spiritual entrepreneurial businesses. And it was such a specific moment that made so many things click in my mind. So I'm a meditation teacher, and I have heard many times this teaching that has come from my original teacher, Hector Marcel, that when we are practicing our meditation, it is really what matters most is that the thing that we take out into the real world off the cushion. And recently I heard another meditation teacher who is of the same lineage say something very similar. And that was an old coach of mine, George, who said the same idea, but he added his sauce to it. And he said, he used the metaphor of coming back to the breath with shamatha meditation. What you're essentially doing is always your meditation object is your breath, and specifically at the tip of the nose, focusing and bringing awareness to the breath at the tip of the nose. And as your mind wanders, you bring it back to the tip of the nose. And he basically shared that you do this so that when you are having a conflict or anything come up in your business or in your relationships or in moments in real life, he was just being more specific about the moments in life, that you are not distracted, that you are not letting your mind distract you and take you to different places, that you're able to really bring back your attention to what matters, which is your breath. And that will help with stress and all of that stuff. And so he said his version of that, and I'm paraphrasing it terribly. But I heard it and it landed just like a millimeter deeper into my soft tissue. And then I heard, I was in this group chat talking to my friends, and they all know George, and Zoe basically shared her interpretation of this idea of yeah, maybe you're feeling jealous or insecure, and this is your distraction, and to the object, the meditation object, is come back to your intention and come back to what matters to you in that moment. And she said something that just allowed the teaching and that dharma to just sink and hit into the perfect piece at a cellular level. So it's a teaching that has been coming to me for years and years and years, but her way of telling this teaching through her filter, through her frequency, through her transmission, really penetrated deeper past that tissue and that superficial tissue and allowed that teaching to land on a cellular level. And I was like, holy shit, Zoe, thank you for explaining that to me in your own words, because now I understand. And a lot of light bulbs went off in my head. And the fun thing about this too was that Zoe said, as she was teaching me her understanding of George's teaching, she understood it differently as well and understood how it could apply to her current experience or her current problem. So I learned two things from that experience. And one is that your way of showing up and filtering an idea and expressing and transmitting a message and creating something in this world, whether it's through words or your art or whatever it is that you create and care about, matters so deeply because you have just a perfectly nuanced filter that only you have, and it will land on the person that needs it most if you keep sharing and are willing to keep taking up that space and expressing the things that you want to share and create. The second thing it taught me was that when we are still figuring stuff out, it is so important for us to teach and to articulate what it is that we are understanding, because we ourselves, as the person articulating, will understand better the more we orate and the more we express, the more we share what it is that we are not fully sure about. So even if you are figuring it out, the way you figure it out is by messily expressing this idea to someone. I really can't express how much this moment has freed me in my creative expression and my self-expression. Specifically with this podcast as well, there has been so many moments where I've stopped myself from truly taking this podcast seriously or really stepping in fully, because I was like, well, there are already spiritual personal development podcasts. There's already Know Thyself. There's already Jay Shetty's of the world, or Modern Wisdoms of the world, or School of Greatness of the world, or Diary of a CEO of the world. Why would people want to hear me share very similar thematics and similar ideas and messages if there are things that exist that are produced a certain way and have a more elevated feel or have more refined feel and have larger audiences and have more notoriety, all of that stuff. And this has unlocked something in me where it's just given me this infinite amount of fuel and understanding that no one can show up as me and no one can transmit a message the way I can, because no one has my memories, my culture, my lens of how this world exists, and no one has your culture, your memories, your lived experience, your lens of how the world exists within your mind, within the space between your ears. And that is your power. So at the end of this group chat, I basically told Zoe that I invented this new idea called telephoning Dharma. And she was like, what does that mean? And that was the seed that started and ended up becoming this podcast episode. But to me, essentially, what telephoning Dharma is your version is the one that people have been waiting for. What we're essentially doing is all in this sacred chain of transmission and experiencing beauty and things that are worth sharing and saying in the world, and doing it in our own way. And the right person who needs to hear that message can only hear that message from you. Just like if this podcast episode is something that resonates with you, you can either share it with a friend and they can get the transmission directly from me, or you can be just talking to a friend over some coffee or a matcha and share your interpretation of what this lesson, this dharma means to you, and your friend might get a completely different experience and really get a different medicine just by you expressing it in your own words. So basically, telephoning dharma in my mind is that in every link in that chain, the message is filtered through a unique human being, their tone, their wounds, their metaphors, and their lived experience. And that filter is not a dilution, it is a translation of what is being interpreted. And I think that's how we really serve people, teachers and creators and business-minded people. All of us are not really building anything completely original, but we are creating something that has our unique imprint and our spirit imbued on it. The reason you exist as a teacher or as a creator or as a business founder isn't so that you could say or do something no one has ever said or done. It is to say and create something in the exact frequency that your specific person needs to receive it. There are people who will never hear it the way that you can say or do it. They need to hear from you, and only you can unlock that little minute moment inside of them that opens up an entire world. I want to bring a couple of examples of this so that you can really wrap your mind around it. I have heard this metaphor said a lot and it never really landed for me, but I'm just going to share it as an example of this teaching, which is I've seen videos and viral kind of memes sharing photos of the water bottle aisle at your supermarket and saying, you know, all of these bottles are essentially selling the same exact thing, but they still all exist. They all have different brands. They all are taking up space on this shelf and have their interpretation of water and of what their brand, what their mission, all of that stands for, and their aesthetics, their beauty, their interpretation of a water bottle. And it's something that I've always remembered because it's such a strong visual and something we can all relate to, just walking into a supermarket and being like, whoa, in the water bottle aisle, being like, there's a lot of variations and iterations of water bottles. But that is a perfect example of it's already been done, but there are still more water bottle companies being made. And recently, the brand that comes to mind is Liquid Death. And their interpretation of branding is so interesting and so disruptive that they've made billions off of their interpretation of water in a can. And I'm a sucker for it too. I am a hardcore Liquid Death water can girl. Another example that comes to mind is when Fenty Beauty launched. So as someone who has worked in the beauty space for 11 plus years, there are just so many clean beauty brands and, you know, very niche boutique or prestige brands that are coming in and out of the Sephoras and the Ultas of the world, and a lot of them don't last. A lot of them don't have the legs and the longevity of a brand. And I remember when Rihanna mentioned that Fenty was coming out, so many people were like, oh great, another celebrity makeup brand. Do we really need this? And when Fenty came out, it disrupted the entire world because it was Rihanna's unique interpretation and creative expression of makeup and the inclusivity of all of the shades. It was the first time where brands were now expected to start having 40 plus foundation shade ranges in their complexion lines. She set the standard and literally rebuilt what the standard of beauty was by just existing, and was crushing it. But that didn't stop Selena Gomez from creating her own line, and Hailey Bieber creating Rhode, and all of these people are still creating and serving the right customer and the right audience. And people are drawn not to the product alone, but your message, what you represent, and who you are as a person. Your aura and the energy that you emit to the world is also the reason why people buy. And as a beauty lover and someone who's been an executive in beauty and worked on creative, it is fascinating that there was always room for someone to come in and shake things up. And I think like a really personal example that seems a little bizarre, but I feel so called to share is I recently became obsessed with the song The Climb by Miley Cyrus. I am not a Miley Cyrus stan or crazy fan or anything like that. I was not a Hannah Montana girl or anything like that growing up, but I recently heard a cover of the song by Miley Cyrus, The Climb, and it was done by The Favors, which is Phineas and Ash, which is a new band that came out like about 6 months ago. And they did like a BBC, like MTV Unplugged-esque cover of her song. And I got fed that song in my algorithm, and I was a puddle of tears. I was crying, and I was like, oh my God, this song is insanely beautiful. And I have not stopped singing that song since. And then I started listening to all these versions of Miley Cyrus singing the song The Climb, and I fell in love with this song that came out back in 2009. But what related to me and what transmitted and what struck my heart was a cover by a band that I never really listened to. And it was their interpretation of Miley Cyrus's song that made me fall in love with the song and gave me the exact medicine that I needed in that moment and the inspiration that I needed. And it was through them and their interpretation that I fell in love with the song. And it is the same. Like, it is like if you create a flower bouquet or a cover of a song or your interpretation of someone's choreography, like it holds your frequency and the energy that only you have. And there's something about that energetic imprint that will always reach the right person when they need it most. And this song has not left my head ever since, and I've been obsessed with it. And I just also want to add a disclaimer. We are not talking about copying or plagiarizing people's creative or not giving credit where credit is due. But this is specific to just, if you are creating and you are doing an interpretation of something that someone's creating, give credit. And if you are sharing a teaching from a teacher of yours, give credit to them for giving you that teaching. And always just always honor the people that you are representing. And I that's really big as a creative person. I just wanted to add that disclaimer. So one question I really want you to sit with is, What teaching are you withholding because you think someone said it or did it better? Who is waiting for your version of it? This is a question that I really want you to sit with. And so I'll ask it again. What teaching are you withholding because you think someone said it or did it better? And who is waiting for your version of it? So when that little voice inside your head, that little tiny voice that says, it's already been said, it's already been done, you're not gonna do anything special with it, you're not blowing any minds, it's just truly your ego protecting you from being seen. And this is something that I have had to sit with, that it's not a fear or an imposter syndrome thing or all of that stuff. It really is just my ego blocking me from my expansion and my ability to just let it rip and say the thing and just trust that I will be able to serve and to transmit something that will help the person on the other side that needs it the most. So remember to pick up the phone and telephone your dharma, your creations, your message, and that the chain only continues if you pass it on. And an intention of mine is that this message is not for me, it is for someone else out there in the ether, and hopefully that person who needs that message will receive it and pass that baton. And I kind of like to think of it as this cosmic relay, and they will pass the baton to the next person who needs it, whether it's their sister or their brother or a neighbor or a stranger that you run into, whoever it is really so much bigger than you. And so when we get out of our ego, we can see how all of this is really for service and how all of this is bigger than us and bigger than our insecurities or our imposter syndrome and fear. And don't let that be the thing that holds you back from sharing your translation of a teaching or your creations in this world. So the last thing I want to leave you with is stop waiting until your idea or your version of the story feels original enough. Where you are right now, that sticky place of understanding, the world needs that version. It needs that frequency from you. Just pick up the phone and be brave and telephone your idea into this world. Broadcast it as boldly and as wildly as you can, because it's not meant for you. It's meant for someone, and you don't know who that person is yet. Thank you so much for tuning in to Monsoon Season this week. If you enjoy this episode, don't forget to like and comment and share it with a friend. And just share the Dharma even in your own words so that this information can translate and live inside you as understanding and as wisdom. I'll see you next time. Bye.